Una stood at the window of her family's tower, looking down at the glittering streets of Valoria Prime far below. The city sparkled like scattered diamonds, with flying vehicles weaving between buildings that touched the clouds. She should have felt grateful. She should have felt blessed. Instead, she felt empty. Her father's voice echoed from the dining hall behind her. He was entertaining business partners again, as he did every evening. Their laughter carried through the massive penthouse, sharp and cruel. "The poor think kindness matters," one of them said between sips of expensive wine. "They trade in it because they have nothing else." "Kindness is just another transaction," her father agreed. "The desperate perform it, hoping for reward. The wealthy have no need for such theater." Una closed her eyes. She had heard conversations like this her entire life. In Valorian culture, everything had a price. Friendship, loyalty, even love could be bought and sold. The more wealth you possessed, the more respect you commanded. Those without money were simply invisible. She touched the crystal pendant around her neck. It was worth more than most beings would earn in a lifetime, yet it felt heavy, like a chain. For weeks, a question had been growing in her mind. Was her father right? Did kindness only exist as a transaction? Did anyone in the entire galaxy help others without expecting something in return? She needed to know. That night, while her family slept, Una accessed the family's technology vault. She found what she was looking for: a holographic disguise projector. It was small, no larger than a coin, and incredibly illegal for civilians to own. Her father had acquired it through questionable means, as he acquired most things. Una programmed it carefully. She made herself look poor, dressed in torn clothing with dirt on her face. She made herself look forgettable. Then she slipped out of the tower through the service entrance, where the cleaning staff would never dare question a family member. The lower districts of Valoria Prime were nothing like the towers above. Here the streets were crowded and loud. Vendors shouted about their goods. The air smelled of food and fuel, and too many beings packed into too small a space. Una had never been anywhere like it. She found a spot near the central spaceport where travelers from across the galaxy came and went. Then she sat down on the cold ground, activated her disguise, and waited. The first person who passed was a Threxian merchant. Una reached out her hand. "Please, I haven't eaten in days." The Threxian's 4 eyes looked down at her with disgust. He stepped over her outstretched hand and kept walking. The second person was a Keltorian female. "Excuse me," Una said softly. "Could you spare any food?" The Keltorian scales flashed orange with annoyance. "Get a job, beggar," she hissed. One after another they passed. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different species. Some ignored her completely as if she didn't exist. Some insulted her. A few threw small coins at her feet without breaking stride, as if she were a parking meter rather than a person. By the second day, Una's determination began to crack. By the third day, she was no longer pretending to be hungry. She actually was hungry. She had committed fully to her disguise, and that meant experiencing what the poor truly experienced. It was horrible. On the third evening, as the sun set and bathed the spaceport in orange light, Una sat with her back against a wall. Her body ached. Her stomach cramped with hunger. She had spoken to hundreds of people, and not one had stopped to truly help her. Not one had treated her like a person. Maybe her father was right. Maybe kindness really was just a myth, the poor told themselves. She was about to give up when she heard footsteps stop in front of her. "Are you okay?" Una looked up. The being standing before her was human. She knew about humans, of course. Everyone in the galaxy did. They were the newest members of the Galactic Coalition, poor and primitive by everyone's standards. Their planet had barely recovered from environmental collapse before they stumbled into space travel. This human was male, probably in his late 20s. He wore a simple work uniform with the spaceport logo on the chest. His dark hair was messy and he looked tired. Very tired, but his eyes were kind. "Are you okay?" he asked again, and this time he crouched down to her level. He didn't tower over her or talk down to her. He made himself small so they could look at each other face to face. Una's throat tightened. In 3 days, he was the first person to ask if she was okay. Not "what do you want?" or "go away." Just a simple question about her well-being. "I'm hungry," she managed to say. The human didn't hesitate. He sat down beside her right there on the dirty ground and pulled a container from his bag. "I just finished my shift. Was going to eat this on the way home, but you need it more than I do. He opened the container and handed it to her. Inside was rice, vegetables, and some kind of protein. It wasn't fancy food. It was simple workers' food. But to Yuna it looked like the most beautiful meal she had ever seen. "Go ahead," he said with a smile. "Eat." Yuna ate. She tried not to cry while she did, but tears ran down her face anyway. The human didn't comment on them. He just sat beside her, keeping her company while she finished every bite. "I'm Jiwan," he said when she was done. "Mina," Yuna lied, using the false name she had prepared. "Mina, that's a nice name." Jiwan looked at her torn clothing and noticed she was shivering in the evening cold. Without a word, he took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "No," Yuna protested. "You need it." "I'll be fine," Jiwan said. "I'm walking home anyway. Movement will keep me warm. You're sitting here in the cold. You need it more." Yuna pulled the jacket tight around herself. It smelled like soap and hard work. "Why are you helping me?" Jiwan looked surprised by the question. "Because you need help." Isn't that reason enough? For the first time in her life, Yuna had no response. In her world, nothing was ever done without a reason, without an angle, without expecting something in return. But this human's face showed no calculation, no expectation, just simple, genuine concern. They talked for an hour. Jiwan told her about his work at the spaceport, loading and unloading cargo ships. He told her about his younger sister back on Earth who was studying medicine. He told her about the struggles of being human in a galaxy that looked down on them. "We don't have much," he admitted. "Earth is still recovering. Most of us out here work hard just to send money back home. But that's okay. Things will get better." When darkness fell completely, Jiwan helped her stand. "There's a shelter 2 blocks from here. Come on, I'll take you there." "You don't have to," Yuna said. "I know, but I want to." At the shelter, Jiwan paid for a week's stay using his own credits. Before he left, he gave her a card with information about job placement programs. "Come find me tomorrow at the spaceport if you need anything else, okay?" Bay 17, "That's where I work." Then he was gone, walking into the night without his jacket, leaving Yuna standing there in shock. In 3 days, she had tested hundreds of beings from across the galaxy, rich and poor, powerful and weak, every species represented in the coalition. Only one had passed her test, and he was human. Yuna woke up in the shelter bed the next morning feeling confused. The mattress was thin and the room was small, shared with 5 other beings who had nowhere else to go. She could have ended this experiment at any moment. One call and her family's vehicles would arrive to take her back to comfort and luxury. But she didn't make that call. Instead, she got up and made her way back to the spaceport. She told herself it was to continue her experiment. She needed more data. One kind human didn't prove anything about the species as a whole. That's what she told herself. But deep down, she knew she wanted to see Jiwan again. Bay 17 was easy to find. It was one of the cargo loading areas where massive ships docked to unload goods from across the galaxy. The bay was loud with the sound of machinery and the shouts of workers directing automated loaders. Yuna spotted Jiwan immediately. He was working with a cargo container twice his size, checking items on a datapad while a mechanical arm moved boxes. His face was focused and serious, completely different from the gentle smile he had given her last night. She waited at the edge of the bay, not wanting to interrupt his work. But somehow, during a break in the cargo flow, Jiwan looked up and saw her. His face lit up immediately. "Mina, you came." He jogged over to her, seeming genuinely happy. "Did you sleep okay at the shelter?" "Yes," Yuna said, surprised by how much his happiness affected her. "Thank you for everything last night. Don't mention it." Jiwan glanced back at his workstation. "I have a break in 20 minutes. Can you wait? I want to make sure you're doing okay." Yuna nodded and Jiwan returned to his work. She watched him for those 20 minutes. He worked hard, never stopping, never complaining. When a younger human worker struggled with a heavy box, Jiwan immediately went to help. When his supervisor barked orders, Jiwan just nodded and worked faster. He worked like someone who couldn't afford to lose this job. When his break came, Jiwan bought 2 drinks from a nearby vendor and brought one to Yuna. They sat on a bench overlooking the landing pads where ships came and went like metal birds. "So, did you check out those job programs I mentioned?" Jiwan asked. "Not yet," Yuna admitted. "That's okay. These things take time." Jiwan pulled out his datapad. "Here, let me help you. What kind of work have you done before?" Yuna's mind went blank. She had never worked a day in her life. Everything had always been provided. I don't have much experience. That's fine. Everyone starts somewhere. Jiwan scrolled through listings. There are some cleaning positions open. They don't pay much, but they provide meals. Or there's data entry work. Boring, but safe. For the next 15 minutes, Jiwan helped her create a profile in the job system. He asked about her skills without judgment. He encouraged her when she felt uncertain. He treated the whole process like it mattered, like she mattered. There, he said finally. You should start getting responses in a few days. And hey, if you need a reference, you can use my name. I don't know you well yet, but I can tell you're trying. That counts for something. Yuna stared at him. You would vouch for a stranger? Why not? Jiwan shrugged. Everyone's a stranger until they're not. Besides, you seem like good people. I trust my instincts about that. His break ended too soon. Before returning to work, Jiwan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bag. I made extra lunch today. Take it. And Mina? Same time tomorrow? I want to make sure you're eating. For the second time, Yuna found herself holding food this human had given her. Food he had prepared himself. Food that meant one less meal for him. She watched him jog back to Bay 17, waving once before disappearing into the work chaos. That evening, back at the shelter, Yuna researched humans. She accessed the galactic databases and read everything she could find. What she discovered shocked her. Humans were ranked as the poorest species in the coalition. Their planet Earth had barely survived ecological collapse 50 years ago. They had no major resources to trade. Their technology was generations behind everyone else. By every measure that mattered in galactic society, they should have been desperate, selfish, hoarding what little they had. But the reports said something different. Human colonies had the highest volunteer rates in the galaxy. They shared resources with each other constantly. On Earth, they had something called community centers, where people helped each other for free. They had food banks where those with extra food gave to those without. The galactic economists called it inefficient. They called it naive. They said humans would learn better once they understood how the galaxy really worked. But Yuna wondered, what if the humans were right and everyone else was wrong? The next day, she returned to Bay 17. Jiwan was there waiting for her with another meal. They talked again during his break. This time, Yuna asked more questions about humans and Earth. It's not perfect, Jiwan admitted. We've made lots of mistakes. The environmental collapse happened because we were selfish and short-sighted, but we learned from it. We learned that we survive better when we help each other. Other species don't think that way, Yuna said carefully. I know. Jiwan looked sad. I've noticed. Most aliens we work with are surprised when we share tools or help each other with heavy loads. They think we're stupid for not competing against each other. But I don't know. Doesn't it make more sense to work together? Over the following week, seeing Jiwan became part of Yuna's daily routine. Every day he brought food. Every day they talked. He never asked for anything in return. He never made her feel like she owed him. On the 5th day, Jiwan introduced her to his friend Hyun, who ran a small noodle shop near the spaceport. Hyun was also human, older than Jiwan, with kind eyes and quick hands. Any friend of Jiwan's eats free here, Hyun said, serving Yuna a steaming bowl of noodles. That's the rule. Yuna watched as Hyun also served 2 other beings who clearly couldn't pay. He didn't make a show of it. He just served them like any other customer and waved away their attempts to pay. You feed people for free? Yuna asked. When they need it, yes, Hyun smiled.
My grandmother always said, a full stomach makes a happy heart. I make enough to get by.
Why not share? On the 7th day, Jiwan took her to a community center run by humans. There she met Minji, a human female who taught language classes to aliens for free. Most aliens don't bother learning our languages, Minji explained. But we learn theirs. We have to if we want to work in the galaxy. So I teach whoever wants to learn. It helps build bridges. Yuna sat in on a class. She watched Minji patiently help a struggling Keltorian with pronunciation. She saw humans of all ages volunteering their time, teaching skills, offering help. It wasn't just Jiwan, it was all of them. This kindness, this generosity, it seemed to be part of human culture itself. That night, alone in the shelter, Yuna finally let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from something more complicated. Shame mixed with wonder. Guilt mixed with hope. She had set up a test to prove that kindness didn't exist in the galaxy. Instead, she had discovered a whole species built on it, and they were the poorest, most looked down upon beings in the coalition. Her disguise device blinked a warning. Its power was running low. Soon she would need to end this experiment and return to her real life. But she wasn't ready. Not yet. The next morning she went to Bay 17 as usual. But when she arrived, she found G1 sitting on the bench, his head in his hands. He looked defeated. G1? Yuna sat beside him. What's wrong? He looked up and she saw his eyes were red. I just got notice. They're replacing half the human workers with full automation next month. I'm losing this job. I'm sorry, Yuna whispered. It's okay. I'll find something else. G1 tried to smile but failed. My sister needs tuition money. I promised I'd send it. Despite his own crisis, despite facing unemployment, G1 still pulled out the lunch he had brought for her. You should eat that yourself, Yuna said softly. Nah, I'll be fine. You need it more. And in that moment, Yuna understood something profound. Kindness wasn't about having extra to give. It was about giving even when you had nothing. It was about caring for others even when you were struggling yourself. The humans had so little. Yet they gave so much. She had been wrong about everything. Yuna knew she should end the experiment. Her disguise device was failing, showing warnings every few hours. She had her answer about kindness. She had proven her father wrong. She should return to her life in the towers and forget about all this. But she couldn't forget G1's face when he had told her about losing his job. She couldn't forget how he still shared his food even while facing his own crisis. She needed to understand more about these humans and their strange, beautiful way of living, so she stayed. The next week felt different. Yuna wasn't observing anymore. She was participating. She helped Yan clean tables at the noodle shop. She assisted Minji with organizing teaching materials at the community center, and she spent every possible moment with G1. G1 had started looking for new work, but he hadn't changed his routine. Every day he still brought food for Yuna. Every day he still checked on her well-being. His kindness didn't waver even though his own situation was desperate. You should worry about yourself, Yuna told him one afternoon as they shared lunch. I am worrying about myself, G1 replied. Making sure you're okay makes me feel better. Is that selfish? Yuna had no answer for that. In Valorian philosophy, self-interest was the only rational behavior. But G1 had somehow found a way to serve himself by serving others. It made no logical sense, yet it clearly worked. One evening, G1 invited her to dinner at his small apartment. It was a tiny space, barely large enough for one person, located in the cheapest district of the city. But it was clean and organized, with plants growing on the windowsill and pictures of Earth on the walls. My sister sent these, G1 said, pointing to the pictures. She wants me to remember home. Tell me about her, Yuna said. G1's face softened. Hana is brilliant. She's studying to be a doctor. Back on Earth, we lost our parents to a disease that could have been prevented with better medical care. Hana decided that day she would become a doctor so other families wouldn't have to lose someone the way we did. She sounds amazing. She is. That's why I work so hard. Her education is expensive, and Earth doesn't have much funding for medical schools yet. If I can just keep sending money for 2 more years, she'll graduate. G1 paused, his smile fading. But now with this job loss, you'll find something, Yuna said, trying to sound confident. I hope so. G1 started cooking, and the small apartment filled with delicious smells. But even if I don't, Hana will be okay. The community back home will help her. That's how humans work. We take care of each other. Dinner was simple but wonderful. They talked for hours, and Yuna found herself telling him things she had never told anyone. It's not the truth about who she really was, but her real feelings. Her loneliness despite being surrounded by people. Her questions about the meaning of wealth. Her doubts about her culture's values. G1 listened to everything without judgment. You know, he said finally. You're the first non-human I've met who thinks about this stuff. Most aliens seem so sure about how the galaxy works. You actually question it. Maybe I'm the strange one, Yuna said. Or maybe you're the smart one. G1 smiled at her, and Yuna felt something warm bloom in her chest, something she had never felt before. Over the following days, G1 introduced her to more humans. She met Daehyun, who worked as a medic and treated anyone who needed help regardless of whether they could pay. She met Yoonji, who taught self-defense classes to aliens for free because she wanted them to feel safe. She met Taman, who fixed broken equipment for his neighbors without charging them. Every human she met shared this same quality. They helped others naturally, as if it were as necessary as breathing. "Why are humans like this?" Yuna asked Hyun one day while helping in the noodle shop. Hyun thought for a moment while stirring a pot. "When Earth was dying, we had a choice. We could fight each other for the scraps, or we could work together to survive. We chose to work together. Those who fought each other didn't make it. Those who helped each other did. So, kindness is a survival strategy? At first, yes. But then it became more than that. It became who we are." Hyun served a bowl of noodles to a customer. "We learned that life is better when you care about others. Not just easier, better, more meaningful." Yuna watched a group of humans sharing a table, talking and laughing together. They looked happy despite having so little. Meanwhile, she thought of her father and his wealthy friends in their towers. They had everything but seemed to enjoy nothing. That night, back at the shelter, Yuna made a decision. She needed to tell Jiwon the truth. He deserved to know who she really was. She would tell him tomorrow, but tomorrow brought disaster. Yuna arrived at Bay 17 to find chaos. Alarms were screaming and workers were running everywhere. A cargo ship had malfunctioned during landing, and its cargo bay had ruptured. Massive containers were falling and several workers were trapped underneath. Yuna pushed through the crowd, her heart pounding. "Where's Jiwon?" She grabbed a human worker. "Where is he?" The worker pointed toward the disaster. "He went in to help. We told him to wait for emergency services, but he wouldn't listen. There are people trapped." Yuna ran toward the fallen containers. Emergency crews were trying to lift them with equipment, but it was slow. Too slow. She could hear screams from underneath, then she saw him. Jiwon was crawling under a partially lifted container, reaching for someone trapped beneath. The container was unstable, held up only by a damaged support beam. If it shifted, it would crush everyone underneath. "Jiwon," Yuna screamed. "Get out of there." But Jiwon didn't listen. He grabbed the trapped worker, a Kravoshan male, and started pulling him out. The Kravoshan was heavy and injured. Jiwon struggled, his face showing the pain of effort. The support beam groaned. Yuna watched in horror as the beam began to crack. In seconds, it would give way completely. Jiwon and the Kravoshan would both be crushed. Her disguise device chose that moment to fail completely. The hologram flickered and died, revealing her true appearance. Blue skin marked with the golden patterns of Valorian nobility, expensive genetic enhancements that made her taller and more elegant than any natural being. The unmistakable look of wealth and power, but Yuna didn't care about that. She only cared about Jiwon. She pulled out her communication device, the real one she had been hiding. "This is Yuna of House Tolarian. Emergency response code Alpha. I need immediate heavy rescue at Spaceport Bay 17. Authorization, my family's private emergency service." Within 30 seconds, 3 private rescue vehicles screamed overhead. They were fast, equipped with the best technology money could buy. Magnetic lifters locked onto the failing container and held it steady. Professional rescue workers swarmed in. They pulled Jiwon and the Kravoshan to safety along with 5 other trapped workers. Medical teams began treating injuries immediately. Jiwon was alive. Bruised and exhausted, but alive. Yuna ran to him, not caring that everyone could now see who she really was. Not caring that her experiment was completely exposed. But Jiwon saw her. Really saw her. His eyes widened as he took in her true appearance, her obvious wealth. The expensive emergency vehicles bearing her family's crest. "Mina?" he whispered. "Or is that not even your real name?" The crowd around them had gone silent. Everyone was staring at Yuna. Word was spreading fast through the spaceport. A Valorian princess had been disguised as a beggar. She had been living among them. Testing them, Yuna reached for Jiwon, but he stepped back. "Was I just an experiment to you?" His voice was quiet, but it cut deeper than any shout. "Was all of this just some game?" "No," Yuna said desperately. "It started that way, but what?" Jiwon's eyes showed hurt and betrayal. "You lied to me. You pretended to be someone you weren't. Everything we shared, every conversation, every moment, it was all based on a lie. Please, let me explain. I trusted you," Jiwon said. "I gave you everything I had. And you were just, what, collecting data? Seeing how the poor people live?" He turned and walked away, limping slightly from his injuries. Yuna tried to follow, but security personnel stopped her. They were her family's security, there to protect her. She watched Jiwon disappear into the crowd and felt her heart break in a way she hadn't known was possible. The rescue operation continued for another hour. All the trapped workers survived, though several had serious injuries. The Kravosian male that Jiwon had saved was named Vorkul, and he refused medical treatment until he could thank his rescuer. "The human saved my life," Vorkul said to anyone who would listen. "I insulted him just last week, called his kind weak. But he risked his life for me anyway." Yuna heard this while her family's security team tried to escort her away from the scene. She pulled away from them. "I'm not leaving. Princess, your father has been informed."
"He's sending a transport. I said I'm not leaving."
Yuna's voice carried the authority of her bloodline. The security team stepped back. She needed to see Jiwon. She needed to explain, but he had vanished into the crowd, and none of the other humans would tell her where he went. They looked at her with confusion and disappointment. She had betrayed their trust too. Finally, Hyan approached her. His face was stern. "You should go home, Princess. I need to talk to Jiwon. He doesn't want to talk to you." Hyan crossed his arms. "Can you blame him? He opened his heart to you. He shared everything he had, and all along you were lying to him." "I know," Yuna whispered. "I know I was wrong. But please, you have to understand." "Understand what? That you wanted to test us? That you needed to prove something about kindness?" Hyun shook his head.
Jiwon gave you kindness every day.
"Real, genuine kindness, and you repaid it with deception?" The words hit Yuna like physical blows. "It wasn't like that. Not after the first day. After I met him, everything changed. I wanted to tell him the truth, I just didn't know how." "Then you should have found a way." Hyun turned to leave, then paused. "You know what the saddest part is? Jiwon was falling in love with you. The real you, whoever that is. But he'll never believe that now." Hyun walked away, leaving Yuna standing alone in the chaos of the spaceport. Her family's transport arrived. A gleaming vehicle that made everyone around it look small and poor. Yuna had no choice but to board it. Security surrounded her, protecting her from a threat that didn't exist. The only danger was to her heart, and they couldn't protect her from that. The transport flew her back to the Tower District, back to her family's penthouse, back to the life she had tried to escape. Her father was waiting. He stood by the same window where this had all begun, looking down at the city below. He didn't turn when she entered. "An interesting experiment," he said calmly, "though I wish you had informed me before using family resources." "I'm sorry, Father. The emergency rescue cost us considerably. And now the media knows. A Valorian princess playing beggar. It's quite the story." He finally turned to face her. "What did you learn from this expensive game?" Yuna thought about Jiwon sharing his last meal, about Hyun feeding strangers, about Minji teaching for free, about Daehyun treating patients who couldn't pay, about Jiwon risking his life for someone who had insulted him. "I learned that you're wrong," she said quietly.
Kindness isn't a transaction.
"It's real. Humans prove it every day," her father laughed. "The humans? You mean the poorest species in the galaxy? The ones who work the lowest jobs because they lack any real skills? They're your proof? They're poor in money, but they're rich in everything that actually matters. My dear daughter, you've become sentimental." Her father returned to looking out the window. "The human was kind to you because he thought you were poor like him. Now that he knows the truth, watch how quickly that kindness disappears. He'll come asking for money soon enough. They always do. You're wrong about him. We'll see." Her father waved dismissively. "You're confined to the penthouse for now. We need to manage the media situation. In a few weeks, this will all blow over, and you can return to your normal life." But Yuna didn't want her normal life anymore. For 3 days, she was trapped in the penthouse while her father's PR team controlled the story. They spun it as a philanthropic investigation, claiming Yuna had been researching poverty to better understand how to help. The media ate it up, praising her dedication. Yuna watched the coverage and felt sick. They were making her into a hero when she had acted like a liar. On the 4th day, her father called her to his office. "I have something to show you." He activated a holographic display. It showed security footage from the spaceport. The footage was from the day after the accident. It showed Jiwon at Bay 17, working despite his injuries. The footage had audio. "Hey Jiwon," another human worker said. Did you hear? That beggar girl you were helping was actually Princess Yuna. She was just testing people. Pretty messed up, right? Jiwon didn't look up from his work. Yeah, I heard. You gonna sue her or something? Rich people pretending to be poor, then using their money to manipulate everyone? That's gotta be illegal. No. No? Man, you could get a settlement that would pay for your sister's entire education. Jiwon stopped working and looked at his friend. She saved everyone in that accident, including me. Her emergency services arrived in seconds. If she hadn't called them, Vorkal and I would be dead. So no, I'm not going to sue her. But she lied to you, man. She played you? Yeah, she did. Jiwon's voice was sad. But I still don't wish her any harm. I hope. I hope she found what she was looking for. The footage ended. Yuna's father looked at her expectantly, waiting for her to admit he had been right about humans coming for money. But she saw something different in that footage. She saw Jiwon refusing to exploit her despite having every right to be angry. She saw him still protecting her even after she had hurt him. She saw kindness extended even to someone who didn't deserve it. He could have destroyed me, Yuna whispered. One interview with the media showing how I deceived him. It would have ruined my family's reputation. He could have asked for anything, but he didn't, her father said. Interesting. Perhaps humans are simply too stupid to recognize opportunity. Or perhaps they're the only ones who truly understand what matters. Yuna stood up. Father, I need to go back. I need to apologize properly. I need to make this right. Absolutely not. You're staying here where you belong. You can't keep me here forever. Her father studied her for a long moment. You've changed. This human has infected you with his naive philosophy. He taught me what you never could. The difference between price and value. They're the same thing. No, father, they're not. Yuna moved toward the door. I'm going back to the spaceport. You can send security to stop me, but that will only make the media situation worse. Her father said nothing, but he didn't stop her either. Yuna left the tower and took public transport for the first time in her life. She rode the crowded vehicles with ordinary beings, seeing the city from a different perspective. No one recognized her without her expensive clothes and hovering security. She arrived at Bay 17 as the sun was setting, painting the spaceport in shades of orange and gold. Jiwon was finishing his shift, securing the last cargo containers. He saw her approaching and stopped moving. For a long moment, they just stood there, looking at each other across the distance of the landing bay. Finally, Yuna closed the gap. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry for lying to you, for deceiving you, for testing you like you were some kind of experiment. You deserved better. Jiwon's face was unreadable. Why did you do it? Because I needed to know if kindness was real. My whole life I've been taught that everything is a transaction, that people only help others when they expect something in return. I needed to know if there was anything genuine in the galaxy. And I found it, Yuna's voice broke. I found it in you. In all the humans I met, you showed me a better way to live, and I repaid you with lies. Jiwon was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, You saved my life in that accident. The emergency services you called arrived faster than anything else could have. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Because despite my disguise, despite my lies, what I felt for you was real, is real. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then don't believe my words. Watch my actions. Yuna reached into her pocket and pulled out her family crest, the symbol of her wealth and status. I'm done pretending. I'm done hiding. I want to be someone who deserves your friendship. Someone who earns it honestly. Jiwon looked at the crest, then at her face. You already knew how to be kind, Yuna. You just needed to learn how to be real. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a start. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of Yuna's life. She showed up at Bay 17 every day, not disguised, just herself. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply helped wherever she could. She carried boxes alongside the workers. She cleaned equipment. She fetched food for the crews during busy shifts. The other workers didn't know what to make of a princess doing manual labor, but they slowly accepted her presence. Jiwon watched from a distance. He wasn't cold to her, but he wasn't warm either. He was polite, careful, guarded, like someone who had been burned and was learning to be cautious around fire. Yuna understood. Trust once broken took time to rebuild, so she gave him time and proved herself through action instead of words. On the 15th day, she found Jiwon sitting alone during his break. staring at his datapad with worry etched across his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting down nearby but not too close. He hesitated, then sighed. "Hana's medical school needs next semester's payment in 2 weeks. I've been working extra shifts, but I'm still short. I thought I had more time, but they moved up the deadline." "How much do you need?" Jiwon told her the amount. It was more money than he could earn in 6 months of hard work. But for Yuna, it was pocket change. She could transfer the funds immediately without even noticing the expense. She opened her mouth to offer, then stopped. Jiwon was watching her carefully, waiting to see what she would do. This was another test, she realized. Not one she had designed, but one life had created. If she just gave him the money, it would solve his immediate problem. But it would also prove her father right. It would reduce their relationship to a transaction, wealthy patron and grateful recipient. It would erase all the progress she had made in rebuilding trust. "Let me think about this," Yuna said. "Give me one day." Jiwon looked surprised, maybe even a little hurt. But he nodded. "Okay." That evening, Yuna didn't return to her family's penthouse. Instead, she went to Hyun's noodle shop. The old human was closing up, cleaning the last tables. "Hyun, I need your advice." He looked up, surprised. "About what?" "Jiwon needs money for his sister's education." "I have the money. Should I give it to him?" Hyun set down his cleaning cloth and studied her. "Why are you asking me?" "Because you understand humans. You understand what kindness really means. And I'm afraid that whatever I do will be wrong." Hyun gestured for her to sit. He poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from her. "Tell me what you're thinking. If I give him the money, it helps his sister. But it also makes me his benefactor instead of his friend. It creates an imbalance between us. But if I don't give him the money, his sister might have to drop out of school, and that's terrible too. Either choice seems wrong. So you're paralyzed by thinking about the consequences for your relationship with Jiwon?" "Yes." "You're asking the wrong question." Hyun sipped his tea. "Don't think about what this means for you and Jiwon. Think about Hana. Think about what's best for her. What would Jiwon do in your position?" Yuna thought about it. Jiwon would help without hesitation. He would give everything he had to help someone in need, even if it complicated his own life. But she wasn't Jiwon. She was Yuna, and she had different resources and different challenges. "I have an idea," she said slowly, "but I need your help." The next morning, Yuna didn't go to the spaceport. Instead, she went to her father's office in the tower. "I need access to my trust fund," she told him. Her father raised an eyebrow. "For what purpose?" "I'm starting a foundation. An organization that provides educational grants to students from poor families across the galaxy. No strings attached. No expectations of repayment. Just support for those who need it." Her father leaned back in his chair. "That's a waste of resources. It's an investment in people. In potential." Yuna stood straighter. "I've seen what humans can do with very little. Imagine what they could do with support. Imagine what any species could do if poverty didn't hold them back. This is about that human sister, isn't it? It's about her. And thousands of others like her. Brilliant people who can't afford education. Talented people who never get the chance to develop their skills. This isn't charity, Father. It's recognizing value that others miss." Her father studied her for a long time. "You're serious about this?" "Completely." "Fine, you can access your trust fund. But don't come asking for more when you waste it all on ungrateful recipients." "They won't be ungrateful," Yuna said. "Because I'm not doing this for gratitude. I'm doing it because it's right." Setting up the foundation took 3 days of intense work. Yuna hired administrators, established application processes, and set up oversight committees. She called it the New Horizons Educational Foundation, and she made sure the first grant went to Hana. But Hana wasn't the only recipient. The foundation granted scholarships to 50 students in its first week. Poor humans, struggling aliens, anyone with potential but without resources. When Yuna finally returned to the spaceport, she found Jiwon waiting for her. He had a strange expression on his face. "I got a message from something called the New Horizons Foundation," he said. "They're paying for Hana's education. Full scholarship." "Did you do this?" "I created the foundation, yes. But Hana earned that scholarship." The committee reviewed hundreds of applications and chose the most promising students. "Your sister was one of them. Yuna." Jiwon's voice was thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." You don't have to say anything. This isn't about you and me. It's about helping people who deserve help. But why? Why not just give me the money directly? Yuna sat down beside him. Because you taught me something important. Kindness isn't about making yourself feel good. It's not about creating obligation or debt. It's about making the world better in whatever way you can. I have resources that most people don't. I should use them to help, not to control. Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Then slowly he smiled. The real smile she remembered from their first meeting. You're learning. I'm trying. You know what the humans call what you did? Paying it forward. Someone helps you and you help others in return. You spread the kindness instead of hoarding it. Is that what I'm doing? Yeah. Jiwon's smile widened. You took what I gave you and multiplied it. That's amazing, Yuna. That's really amazing. Over the next month, the New Horizons Foundation grew. Yuna worked on it every day, processing applications, finding donors, expanding the program. Other wealthy families started contributing, seeing it as good publicity. Yuna didn't care about their motives. She only cared about the result, more people getting help. She also kept working at the spaceport. Not for show, but because she genuinely enjoyed it. She liked being useful. She liked being around people who valued work and community. Her relationship with Jiwon slowly healed. They started having lunch together again. They talked like friends. The hurt was still there, but it was fading, replaced by something stronger, something real. One evening, 6 weeks after the accident, Jiwon asked her to dinner at his apartment again. Yuna arrived nervous, unsure what this meant. I want to show you something, Jiwon said. He pulled up a video message on his screen. It was from Hana. She was a young woman with kind eyes and a bright smile. Jiwon, tell your friend thank you. The scholarship saved my education. I can focus on my studies now instead of worrying about money. I'm going to be a doctor, and I'm going to help so many people. Tell her that her kindness created a ripple. I'll pass it on to everyone I treat. The video ended. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. She wants to meet you someday, Jiwon said. She says anyone who helps others like you do is family. Family, Yuna whispered. In Valorian culture, family was about bloodline and status. But humans used the word differently. They included people who weren't related by blood. They created family through choice and care. Yuna, Jiwon said softly, I forgive you. For the disguise, for the test, for all of it. You made a mistake, but you've more than made up for it. You've changed hundreds of lives. You've proven that you're not just rich in money. You're rich in heart. Yuna couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She cried, and Jiwon held her, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. 3 months later, Yuna stood before the Galactic Coalition Council. She was presenting a proposal to expand the New Horizons Foundation across all Coalition worlds. Behind her stood Jiwon, Hyun, Minji, and dozens of other humans who had helped develop the program. I started this foundation because I learned something from humans, Yuna told the assembled representatives. I learned that wealth isn't measured in credits. It's measured in what you do with what you have. The humans are the poorest species in our coalition, yet they demonstrate the richest values. They help each other. They build community. They create meaning through connection. She activated a holographic display showing the foundation's impact. Hundreds of students now had educational support. Thousands more had applied. Other wealthy families had started similar programs copying the model. This is what I call the human paradox, Yuna continued. They have the least yet give the most. And in doing so, they've shown us all what true civilization looks like. I propose that we adopt human community support models across the coalition. Not because it's efficient, but because it's right. The chamber was silent. Then one by one, representatives began to signal approval. Not all of them, but enough.